Chaim. It's really, Ari said a couple of minutes ago, he was talking about that which Rabbi said in Tavshin and Beis, in his time, Avedas Abirurim. And the chaver of mine at the time said that as long as I have a taiva for a pastrami sandwich, I don't see the Nistaim Avedas Abirurim. And it would seem to me that while it's possible to take a look around at the unprecedented events that are happening in the world today, and certainly in them, as in every other thing, you can always find good, and perhaps in this one might be even easier to find it. But the bottom line, we need simply to demand one thing and one thing only, that it should stop and Mashiach should come. And there's no question that our shlichus hasn't stopped. What's our shlichus? Every one of us can know, as, quote, isolated as we are and as separated as we are, in the Gashmias, all over the world. But wherever it is that we are, because of this day, we can know that we are exactly where we're supposed to be. And not only do we know where we're supposed to be, but the Rebbe was very clear and letting each and every one of us know just what exactly it is that we should be doing. The Rebbe, on more than one occasion, on many occasions, it was a Dovra Shogr Befiv, that which the Rabbeim said, as tracht gut, wird sein gut. As somebody pointed out, an interesting thing. It doesn't say, when the Rebbe writes it in letters, I looked in several letters, the Rebbe doesn't write, Keiros Rabbi Seinu Nesienu. It doesn't write, Kemaimer Rabbi Seinu Nesienu. Kemesuperedis Rabbi Seinu Nesienu. It says, Ketzivui Rabbi Seinu Nesienu. Atzivui. I have Atzivui from Rabbi. Oh, Atzivui. Tracht gut. I believe it's in a Ha'ore and a Sicha. I looked and couldn't find it. I remember it. Maybe I'm wrong and I'm imagining it, but I'm pretty sure. The Rebbe brings down in reference to the concept of betochen in general, and that we're called upon to have betochen, that the be'etzem betochen, the Rabbi Niena writes, is a mitzvah esem min ha-Torah. It's a mitzvah min ha-Torah to have betochen. Like it's a mitzvah to put on tefillin, like it's a mitzvah to eat matzah on Pesach, it's a mitzvah to have betochen. And he brings it from an Torah where it says, "B'negeh to a soldier that goes out to war," where he's told, the soldiers are told, "Al tira ve'al techas," you shouldn't fear, you shouldn't tremble. So the Rabbi Niena writes that this is applicable to every Yid, be'es tzara, when there's a difficult situation facing him. The Torah tells him, "Al tira ve'al techas." You shouldn't be afraid. You shouldn't tremble. If you shouldn't be afraid, no tira and no techas. Why? Because that other side of that same coin is what? What should you do? Have bitochen that it will be good. It will be good, and that's the mitzvah. And again, it's not a mitzvah that you need to understand any more than you need to understand mitzvah of tefillin and to understand all of the hamshachas that are affected by putting on the tefillin shel rosh and the tefillin shel yad, v'chulu v'chulu. I mean, it's not a bad idea to learn the sheresh mitzvah, but the bottom line is whether you do understand or you don't understand, you put on tefillin. Whether you do understand or you don't understand, you eat the matzah. Whether we But not only is that's what he wants from every single Yid, v'yitachin from everybody. But as Chassidim, as Shluchim, and every one of us is a Shliach. The Rebbe gave us another job, and that is not pshat just simply to have bitachon. The Rebbe gave us a job to make sure that others have it as well. And if there's anything unique about this particular time that we are living through, certainly unparalleled in history, in recorded history, there has never been a time when the world has been as open to hearing this, as needing to hearing it, and as virtually begging from us to tell it to them. And sitting in our homes, we are in no way precluded from doing that. We have the same telephone, and we have the same Zoom, and we have this. I never used Zoom in my life until a week and a half ago. So Akapanim, this is the Makdim Refuah Lemaka, to be able to do the things that we need to do, to be able to fulfill our shlichus. And that is our shlichus. The world should live now with tracht gut. And if it will be tracht gut, the Rabbeim tell us that that itself is the keli to even quicker that it should be that sein good. It's going to be good. And it's going to be good in a way that we can see it here lemata in a eifin golui b'teiv hanira v'hanigle here lemata. That's the way. That's the thing that we need to do now. Especially it's Yud Alef Nissan. What's Yud Alef Nissan? There's a story that I've told on more than one occasion, that's been told by others probably. Perhaps everyone here on the phone has already heard the story. I think it's worth repeating again. It's a story that happened with Rabbi Yisroel Weinberg, Olav Hashalom, when he would travel all over the world. He had connections, people all over the world. And one time he received a telephone call from a balabas in somewhere in the Midwest of America. And he called him. This was the days before email. It was even before fax machines, if you can believe it. And he had a question for the Rebbe that was very urgent. So he asked Rabbi Weinberg if he could write down the question and take it in to bring it to the Rebbe for an answer. Rabbi Weinberg, of course, sat down, wrote out the letter, and then went to 770 to deliver it in hand so that he should be able to go into the Rebbe. And he walked into 770 just as Rav Chadakov was walking through the hall 770 into the Rebbe's room with the last mail of the day. And Rabbi Weinberg is standing holding the letter, and it's going to have to wait for tomorrow. But it was urgent. So he walked over to the doorway of Gan Eden Elyon of the Rebbe's room, and he stuck the envelope with the letter into the door jamb, anticipating that Rav Chadakov, when he would come out and open the door, he would see the letter, and he would take it and put it on the Rebbe's desk with the other letters. And he stood there waiting. Rabbi Chadakov backed out of the room, out of the Rebbe's room, and he didn't notice the letter. It fell onto the floor. He didn't notice it, but as the door is closing, Rabbi Weinberg saw that the Rebbe did notice it and was getting up from his desk to go around and pick the letter up off of the floor. So he wrote the next day a letter of abject apology. The Rebbe answered him, and the point that I would like to make. The Rebbe wrote to him like this. There was no need for an apology. Halei kol inyonehu if uftzehim. My job is to lift up. Ubefrat das was andere verzen, especially those things that others overlook. That's almost like the job description of Lubavitcher Rebbe. What does the Rebbe do? Halei kol inyonehu, kol inyonehu. What do I do? If uftzehim, I lift up. And today is the day that lifting up becomes real. It's the day, it's taka true. Allah Adam lizbeited, and to see, are we allowing ourselves to be lifted up? Are we doing the things that we need to do to make it easier for the Rebbe to lift us up? And the Rebbe wants to lift us up to a place where we will be able to do the things that he wants us to do and to accomplish the thing that he wants more than anything else, to bring Mashiach. And it's up to us. It's the day that we need to focus on what it is that the Rebbe wants us to do, and that the Rebbe is giving us the keiches to do. He's not sending us out there alone. He comes there with us. He doesn't give us jobs that are more than we can accomplish. He gives us the keiches to do everything that he needs and that we need to accomplish. And our job is just simply to do it. Somebody once said that Rebbe's insistence that Mashiach is coming now is, the Rebbe wrote a check, as it were, and the check is Mashiach is coming. And the Rebbe wants us now to cover the check, to make sure Mashiach comes. Elamai, what's the gdula? Writing a check and somebody else should cover it. I could do something like that. No. The Rebbe wrote the check. Mashiach is coming. And the Rebbe is calling on every single one of us to cover the check. And the Rebbe gives every single one of us everything we need to cover that check. All we need to do is deposit it. All we need to do is to deposit what the Rebbe gave us already, so it should be able to happen. Starting with, first and foremost, I cannot stop it, coming back to it, our job right now is tracht gut, when there's and making sure that people understand that their job is to focus on tracht gut. Their newspapers are filled from the beginning to the end. The internet is filled from the beginning to the end with this machla and all of this, and people become farjarit and farjurit. So it's nice and good to be able to sit by a fabrengen and say that we should get up in the morning, and instead of washing negovasa and brachas and then running to the telephone and take a look and see what happened overnight, v'chulu, to instead go straight to the Sefer Chassidus or to whatever it is, to the davening, and then to do what you have to do, v'chulu, and live taka positively. But the rest of them are living the way they're living. And it's our job to change the focus. It's our job to make sure that in 3 days from now, that on Wednesday night, in an unprecedented fashion, Yidden should sit down and have a seder like a seder should be. That's our job now. That's what we need to do. And the Rebbe gives us the keiches, difficult though it might seem to be, to go ahead and to actually do it. I want to tell a story that I heard from from Reb Shmulu, who I don't know, but it looks like he may very well still be on the phone, and under the best of circumstances, telling a story that I heard from Reb Shmulu, telling that in England is not just like bringing coal to Newcastle, but probably not bringing inferior coal to Newcastle. So, Shmuel, if you're listening, please.
He is listening.
Oh, excuse me?
He is listening.
He is listening. Then if someone can ask him to stop listening. In any case.
He's actually smiling.
This was, the Rebbe once asked Rabbi Groner to call Rabbi Lu and to ask him if it's possible that he can get matzah, to have matzah from the Rebbe to get into Russia without everybody on Kingston Avenue knowing about it. The shtalchus of the story, for those of you, probably most of you, you can probably ask Rabbi Lu directly and get it accurately. I want to bring one point of the story that I've been living with. It was, I think, 10 pounds, and there was a question of how to get 10 pounds in it. For one person or two people to get it was not enough. So he was able to convince one person to bring, a second person to bring, and he was left, I think, with 4 or 6 pounds of matzah and no one to get them in. And it's 2 or 3 days before Pesach. And then he heard that there were 2 Bachrim from Yeshiva University that were going to Russia for Pesach. So first he was going to go to New York from London and bring them the matzah they should bring, but then it turned out that they were actually going through London, and he made up to meet with them in the airport as they were changing planes to go to Moscow. So they came out from customs or whatever it was, and they sat down a shop or whatever. And Rabbi Lu tells them what the story is. He has here 4 pounds of matzah, 6 pounds of matzah. If they can each take 2 or 3 pounds with them, matzah from the Rebbe. Well, in those days, Bechlal going into Russia from a Yid was not a simple thing. And for them, it was what enough to take matzah and 2 pounds of matzah, 4 pounds of whatever. It was like, so he explained to them, don't you understand the whole reason that you were going to Russia? Why is it that you're going to Russia now? The whole reason why you're going to Russia is because the Rebbe needs to get the matzah into Russia. It wasn't, they weren't getting that yet. Don't you understand? The whole reason why you're changing planes, and it came out that you're changing planes here in London, it's only so you should be able to take the matzah. Why else did it work out this way? And they're still not buying it. And finally, Rabbi Shmuel gives us screaming. He says, don't you understand the whole reason you were born was to take this matzah to Russia? They took the matzah. The whole reason every single one of us was born and was zeichet to come to this day of Yud Alef Nissan Tov Shin Pei was so that we should now be Mekayim the Rebbe's shlichus and to do what the Rebbe wants from us today, Yud Alef Nissan and Yud Beis Nissan and Yud Gimel Nissan and Erev Pesach, until we'll together with the Rebbe be able to be Nechel Sham and Azvachim and Apsachim. That's what we need to do. We need to do it now. And that's what Yud Alef Nissan is telling us. It was a nice speech, yeah? And then we'll say L'chaim, and we'll hear again another Divrei Seres, hopefully far better than what I have set up until now. And yet, nevertheless, we're still left with the unfortunate reality when we'll lay down tonight, when we finally got out of the kratzing, whatever, it didn't need to be cleaned still in the kitchen tonight, and lay down and close our eyes and wonder it's as somebody said it. I think it was Scholl that said earlier what the Rebbe said about to Rabbi David Shochat, that when you wake up in the morning, to be able to wake up freilich hate, just knowing that the Eibishter gave you another day, and yet with that, but how am I going to get through? How am I going to get through that day when I'm not sitting with together with another 100, 200, 300 chassidim and saying l'chaim and focusing on the Rebbe being with us and focusing on the Rebbe giving us keiches and the Rebbe's giving us brachas. And so, yeah, there probably are many, many, many chassidim that, yeah, they just keep on going with that. And then there are some sort of like me. And the project with the Sichas, we're learning now Chelik Beis. The Sicha of last Shabbos, last week in Sav, the Rebbe says there's something that I found mind-boggling. Where the Rebbe is talking about Rashi talks about the Carbon Teda, and it was for the Dalet Nisim. And the Rebbe explains why is it that Rashi uses this unusual order of the description of the Dalet Nisim, which are not the way it is in Tehillim, and it's not the way it is in Gemara. But rather, Rashi starts the Dalet Nisim and uses the order of Yerdei Yom, and then Helchem Evinbar, and then Chavish Beis Asurim, and then a person who's not well. And the Rebbe explains that when Moshe Rabbeinu is explaining to the Yidden what it is, the mitzvah of Carbon Teda, and when you have to bring a Carbon Teda for a Nes, so it's mistaver that when you explain something to somebody, you tell somebody something, you tell it to something about the way of B'didi Hava Uvda is a lot easier if you can relate to it personally, so then it's, you understand it a lot better. And so the Moshe Rabbeinu was talking to the Yidden, so he explained it in the way that they could relate to it in the order that it happened with them. First, they went into the Yam Suf and out, and so that's the Yerdei Hayam. And then they went into the desert. It's Helch B'Midbar, and then they were chavush because they were stuck in the Midbar. Okay, they couldn't leave. That Eibishter made the gzer that they had to stay in the Midbar. And then after that, somebody who's sick. And the Rebbe asked, but l'chayre, why is chavush b'Midbar when somebody like in a Beis Hasurim in jail is like they were stuck in the Midbar? Like in jail, should have been when they were in Mitzrayim, they were in jail. So the Rebbe writes that in Mitzrayim, it wasn't really that they were in jail. There was Shibud Mitzrayim, but it wasn't a jail. Jail was in the desert. In Mitzrayim was a Shibud. It was Ke'ain. It was like a jail. Ke'ain, Beis Hasurim, but it wasn't a jail. Jail is when they were in the desert after the Gzer that they couldn't go into Yisroel. And you stop and you think like, what? In Mitzrayim it says that no Eved was ever successful in escaping from Mitzrayim. It was so Sogur Musugeres that it was Pashut impossible for an Eved to even escape. In Mitzrayim, they had tsuris. I don't have to repeat what the Yidden went through during those years in the Shibud Mitzrayim. Like Lo Yu'uman Ki Yisupar. What happened to the Yidden in Mitzrayim? That is not jail. And when the Yidden were in the desert, and they were surrounded by the Ananei HaKoved that protected them from all of the elements. And the mon came down from Himmel every single day and gave them everything they needed for sustenance. And the water was coming out of the rock, and they had what to drink, and they had to be able to go to the mikveh without worrying about Tisha Kabim and the Alazachen. That's jail. It's like, to say counterintuitive is almost an understatement. And what's pshat? And it occurs to me that perhaps Yud Alef Nissan explains it. You see, when the Yid were in Mitzrayim, And they had all of the tsaras, tzruras that they had. What did the Yidden want? What did they want? They wanted that tsaras should stop. They wanted that the Egyptians should leave them alone. They wanted they should be able to go back to Eretz Goshen, not to stay in Eretz Goshen, where it was comfortable and where it was meitav haaretz, and lost on Seru, and that's it. And everything will be good. Good for you, be good for us. Just let us go back to meitav haaretz and Eretz Goshen. That's what they wanted. And when Moshe, which explains, Taka, why when Moshe Rabbeinu came and started with the Gula, and it didn't happen right away, so the Yidden came complaining, what did you start up with him for? Just keep him happy, he'll let us be happy, and everything will be fine and good. That's all they were looking for. Mashenk, and after Matan Torah, and the Yidden discovered that the whole purpose of being and existing, what were you born for, was lasis leis barik dira b'tachteinim. The whole purpose of living here, alei adamis, is one reason only. Lasis leis barik dira b'tachteinim. And adira b'tachteinim can only be made if they go into Eretz Yisroel. And the Eibusher is coming and telling them now, no, you can't go into Eretz Yisroel. You have to stay here in Midbar, in the Golus. That's when they felt the definition and the meaning of a Beis HaSurim. That was a Beis HaSurim. Not to be able to do what the Eibusher wanted. Not to be able to be Mamshech Shechina Lemata and to be Maila Elam Haza Lemaila. Not to be able to fear ace the kavana and have to sit there without ace fear and the kavana. That already is like, well, that's a chavish bebeis hasurim. Yud Alef Nissan is the day that tells every single one of us. It's the day that gives every single one of us the ability to rise above the Beis HaAsurim and the Golus that we're living in. Un aderab, taket tefir eis de kavona el yena, that every single person, every single Yid should know that there's a Rebbe of the world. And every single person and every single Yid should know the Rebbe for the world. And every single person and every single Yid should know that the Rebbe gives every single one of us the keches to be able to do it. That's what I do. I lift you up. And today is the day to do it. Today is the day that we need to realize that we can reach higher, that we can be higher. It doesn't seem to make sense in our fleische Eisen. On the night of Dalet Tevis, or maybe it was the week before the Alter Rebbe was nostalgic. So at one point he looked at the beam of the thing, of the room where he was, and some tzedek was. No, I'm mixing two stories up. I'm sorry. It was the Meglech was talking the Friedrich Rebbe. I'm sorry, it was the Friedrich Rebbe what the Rebbe was saying. That the Rebbe said to the Friedrich Rebbe, das ist nicht der Hand, das ist Elikus. So the Friedrich Rebbe touched the Rebbe Husein's hand and he said, Tate, ich tap flesh, I'm feeling flesh. So the Rebbe Hussein said to the Friedrich Rebbe, du tappst doch mit flesh, because you're touching with flesh, so you're feeling flesh. So we're fleshige beings, noch chumrisdike fleishige beings. So versteht sich, so we don't see it, we don't feel it. It's okay? Just like nobody has to understand how an antibiotic works to make it work. No one has to understand why Trachtgut is going to make it good. Aber azay punkt azay geht es sein. Still, and we're like, again, the raids are good, but I told this story in a previous Farbrengen. I initially regretted saying it, and maybe I shouldn't say it. It's a very personal story. But you know what? Like, this is a miraf von Herzen, so I'll say it. When our youngest child was sick, very sick, at one point, when the matzav was turning, the matzav was never good, but we lived then, Pashut, our whole family and others lived with the Trachtgut, Vetzeingut, Betochen, and it's taka going to be good, and only good, and not to think about anything other than good. We turned his hospital room where he was in isolation, and this is a big sign on the door. This is a happy room, and if only can come into this room and be happy. And mit dem hat man gelebt. Motzei Shabbos, when the last Motzei Shabbos was, we were standing, the whole family standing around his bed, and we were singing the whole time. We were singing one niggin and another niggin and another niggin for hours. So it was about 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning. We were singing the Rabbi Leivik's Hakafas niggin, and that's when the Eibishter took his neshama back. A couple of weeks later, I saw a letter that my daughter, Sein Gesund und Stark, wrote to a friend. And she writes there that describing how we were living with Trachtgut, Vetzeingut, and it was real, and it was. And then she said, and this happened. And I was wondering, so what's with the Trachtgut, Vetzeingut? I mean, and then she said, until I realized, just imagine if we hadn't lived with this Trachtgut, Vetzeingut, if we hadn't lived with all of this singing and with all of this happiness and with all of this Freilichkeit, what would have been with me? I would have probably been laying in bed in despair for 2 weeks. But because we lived Trachtgut, Vetzeingut, so therefore, he shleimi had 2 weeks of Freilichkeit, of Lichtigkeit, shleimi we had, and it was good. It was good. Of course, moving a pashut. That's not the good that we're looking for now. That is not the good. We're looking for good pashut b'teiv hanirim v'anigla l'mata masaret tvachim, that it's going, and we know we know it's going to be pashut good b'gashmias. But we need to understand it is already good. B'ruchnius, it is good. And we have the ability to live in a place where it is good. It's not enough. It's not enough to live in that place. We have to bring that good taked and make sure that the Eibishter brings it down l'mata masar tvachim b'teiv hanir v'anigla. But until we get there, what we have to do b'teiv hanira v'anigla, and with all of our keches, knowing as is take good, and that we take have the right to say now on Yud Alef Nissan, that Gut Yom Tif, even though there are so many people that are hurting, and there are so many people that are grieving, and there are so many people that are worrying, so we have to take away the hurt, and we have to take away the grieving. We have to take away the sickness. And how are we going to go about doing it? So every one of us has our particular shlichus in whatever it happens to be. But Derek Klau, I can't imagine that there's anybody that doesn't have right now the shlichus of making sure that every Yid should have Shmura Matzah before Pesach, v'chulu, v'chulu, v'chulu. On top of that, Azal Zayin Take trachten gut, et Zayin gut. But until then, in the words of Kapitel Kufi Test that we said just a couple of moments ago, and Eretz Hashem will be saying every single day this year, till Bias HaMashiach, and after Birkas HaMashiach, Bakesh Avdecha, Rebbe, look for us, seek us out, find us. Ki mitzvesecha leishachachti, because we didn't forget to do what you wanted us to do, and you take us and lift us and bring us with you to Mashiach Tzidkenu, v'nechal sham take this year, min asvachim v'rapsachim, l'chaim, l'chaim.